Hello artists, this is part 2 of our Dreamcatcher tutorial. If you have not seen the first part, make sure you go back and watch that on how to prepare your wire hanger frame to actually hold the Dreamcatcher portion of this project. So we're going to be working on how to actually add in the netting to the center of your piece. Once you have your frame done, it's been covered with yarn, you're going to pick out the first color you're going to want for this. Now you can change colors throughout this project, or you can stick with one. Either is fine. You want to get enough yarn that you'll be able to work with it without it getting too tangled. I suggest just over a full arm length. If you stretch both arms all the way out, that usually works to have enough for this. So we're going to start by tying it on the top. Just get a little tail there. Crisscross to make a loop. Go through the loop. Pull it nice and tight. Crisscross through the loop. Pull it nice and tight. Okay. After you get things going, you'll be able to, we'll add a little bit of glue onto some of these knots so that you can cut off these little extras that you don't want to have just hanging out. Let's get a little bit closer. All right. So how you're going to do this is you're going to want to, we're going to be tying knots all around this frame, but you want to make sure to leave a little bit of space. So what I found was easiest to do was to actually put 3 fingers right onto the wire, kind of hold that in place. And then you're going to take this part, cross over your fingers, and you're going to do the same knot that we were just doing going around the frame. You're going to go over the wire, leave a little bit of a loop behind, tuck the end underneath so it comes through that loop, and you're going to pull it until it hits your fingers. Make it kind of snug. Do it a second time. You can just do it, same thing, over, leave a little bit of a loop behind, underneath, and pull it through. You do need to do this twice. The first knot will not be enough to hold it by itself. You have to have the second one to really lock it in good. And at that point, you can free your fingers, and you should have a little bit of a loose bit of yarn here. You don't want it to be too tight. We need it at least with enough flex that we'll be able to tie the rest of them on. So back up just a little bit. So now you're going to continue. This part will go much quicker than the frame did. Keep your fingers on the wire. Stay up at the top, please. Now I'm trying to get a little tangled on me. There you go. What happens when you try to rush it. And we're just going to continue this over and over. Over, under, through the loop. Over, under, through the loop. So this is just going to continue all the way around your frame. I'm going to finish this knot, and then I'm going to skip ahead to show you what happens when you get to the other end of your hoop and you're ready to continue to the next step. All right, so I've gotten to the end. I've got just that one little space left. My 3 fingers doesn't take me quite as far as the knot. You don't actually want it to get to that knot though. So it's actually good to be ending it right here. I'm still gonna put my fingers in there. I'll fit just 2 in there for this. Getting right down to the end of it. I measured this pretty well. So now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go and try to hit the knot that I started with. I actually want to take this to the center of the next one. Now, if you're running low on string at this point, or you're ready to switch colors, what you're going to do for that is you're going to get your second string, same color or a different color. You're going to want to line them up and try to pinch right near where the center of that string is. So what we're going to do here is we're going to tie these 2 together. We're going to go and make a tiny little loop and then force them through the loop so we can create a knot. And I'm trying to keep it as close to the middle of this one as I can. So I'm kind of measuring and I'm tightening and I'm measuring and I'm tightening. There we go. Now before I cut it, I'm going to tie the next one. So now you're doing the same knot again. You're still going over and under through our bit of a loop. And I'm going to pull this up until pretty much the knot is right around there, which I have measured pretty well. It's nice and tight there. I'm going to keep that there for a moment. Hold on to it with my thumb. Same thing, going over and under, making sure I'm coming up in the middle of my remaining loop. So that'll create a nice knot. And I'll try and keep that as close to the center as I can. Pretty good. I'm going to trim these a little bit shorter so they're out of the way. Now I go to my next little loop. Same deal. Wrap through it. Make sure you're coming up in between these strings like you have created a loop. Pull on it so it's right near the middle. Now don't pull it too tight. You don't want to stretch this out like crazy. You just want it to be right in the middle. Hold that in place so I can do the second knot. Pull the knot snug. So even just by tying it, it's going to start to pull that away from the middle a little bit, which is good. And now it's just going to be the same deal. You're going to go all the way around. And when you get back to the start again, you're going to begin the next row of your catcher. So once you've gone around and gone to the middle of this rope, and then you've gone to the middle of this one, then you're going to the new middle, which will be the new color. So when I'm ready to switch colors, it'll happen right here, and then I'll have a new color going in from there. Pretty simple. Everything is going from the middle of the previous row's loop. Make sure that every time you do it, you're creating that bit of a knot, that you're not just wrapping around it. If you do just wrap around it, it's not the end of the world, but it's not going to hold in place the same way that an actual knot will. So you're going to keep going and going and going until pretty much you get into the middle. Now, depending on how tightly you pull your strings, it can change what happens in the middle. When I first did this beautiful neutral color brown one, I was pulling on it pretty tightly. So what ended up happening was I ran out of room to be able to tie by the time I got to the center, and it ended up leaving me with this big center, which is why we created a nice little decoration to go in the middle of it. If you don't pull it quite as tightly, then you're going to end up with something that closes up a little bit better. So when I did this lovely one using just white, I didn't pull quite as hard as I was going through. It naturally began to pull on itself as I continued to the middle, but because I left it looser, it allowed me to get a lot more of a closed shape, which actually looks a lot nicer, and then you don't have to worry about creating extra decorations. So continue on with this, and then the next tutorial will be how to add the rest of your piece. Get all the way to the end.